Get out my way.
Chris tried to push me out of the plane.
Okay. Hey, I tried to push Katrina out of the plane to get her seat.
That's a shame that you admitted it.
I was embarrassed to see it because he's sending me crap that he was call it. So,
First lady called them one day and gentleman called me.
Are y'all ready?
ready.
Okay, good afternoon. I want to thank y'all for coming out today, and it was an opportunity that I had to meet with some local elected officials, members of the various police juries and sheriff's offices, but also talk to your offices of emergency preparedness. And then we took up into the air, and we just flew and circled over between here and Minden, came back across Bernice and Farmerville, went to Monroe, West Monroe, and circled back. I will tell you the devastation here, and I know this goes without saying, is nowhere near what we saw in Southwest Louisiana yesterday, which I'm very thankful for. I'm optimistic that the power restoration is going to happen relatively rapidly, and I can't give you a prediction on that. I can only tell you it's going to come in hours and days, not what we saw in Southwest Louisiana yesterday. And I know you have plenty of power crews that are already here working. And in fact, I want to share with you that we had more power crews pre-positioned ahead of the storm than ever before in the history of our state. And I think that was the biggest storm to ever strike Louisiana. I was talking to some individuals here today who've been living here all their lives. They can never remember hurricane force winds this far in North Louisiana that we experienced yesterday. So we've got a long way to go with this emergency. I do want you to know that we requested a major federal disaster declaration about noon today of the White House. I'm expecting they're going to turn that around pretty fast. That will enable us to get even more assistance, and then we can start looking for those parishes that might qualify for public assistance or individual assistance. And again, I can't make any representations about that right now with respect to any particular parish, but we're going to get all the damage assessments done on the individual side and the public side, submit that information, and get as much support as we can get. Now, I do want to provide a little bit of a safety briefing here today. We're reporting 10 fatalities across Louisiana. 4 of those were from trees falling on homes. 1 individual drowned in his boat, and then we've had 5 carbon monoxide poisonings. So people are running generators indoors or in very poorly ventilated areas, and that is just an ultra hazardous thing to do. So I'm encouraging everybody that until the lights come back on, please don't do that. We're hopeful here that the power restoration is going to happen pretty fast, but really want to stress that safety is incredibly important. And really, it's oftentimes in storms like this, it's during the recovery phase that you have more casualties because people injure themselves when they're cleaning up, cutting trees, or they run into a down power line and they don't respect it. They don't understand that line is alive, and certainly carbon monoxide poisoning. We have 6,200 National Guardsmen working today. That's the most we've had in many, many years in Louisiana. They're doing tremendous work all across the state of Louisiana. As you know, they were responsible for our COVID testing for the most part, our surge sites and our community-based testing sites. We're going to start those back up on Monday. Quite frankly, we can't afford to lose sight of our testing because it was about 3 weeks ago that our schools came back. And we've had students back on our college campuses. And as you know, it takes about 2 weeks from the time behavior changes to see whether there's going to be a change in positivity and cases, which will lead to more hospitalizations and deaths. So this is a very bad week for us not to be doing robust testing. To put this in perspective, we're reporting 30 new deaths today from COVID. Now we've had 10 deaths altogether from this storm, 30 deaths from COVID today. And so this still remains a very serious situation, both as it relates to the public health emergency and as it relates to the disaster that we had with the hurricane. And when you put them both together, it's extremely challenging. So last night, we had well over 3,000 people across the state of Louisiana in hotel rooms because we can't do congregant sheltering safely during a COVID environment. That presents a lot of logistical challenges, but I will tell you the people of Louisiana and your state agencies and all the local governments, parish governments, working extremely hard to make this as safe as it can possibly be. There are 82 water systems that are down in Louisiana right now. That's a real problem when you have electricity and water systems down. And by the way, a lot of times it's the electricity being down that causes the water system problems. That's causing us to have a rolling series of evacuations that we're having to do from nursing homes and from hospitals. So restoring power, getting water back up is incredibly important. And we also need water to fight fires too. And so until we get these water systems back up, we're asking people to obviously be very, very careful out there. So we've got no shortage of things to do, but I will tell you I'm very heartened by what we saw up here today, the conversations we had with your leaders. We know how hard people are working, and again, we expect the power restoration here to be hours and a few days, not many days and potentially weeks. Please treat every down power line as if it's live, because if you don't do that and you're wrong, you know, you're going to pay for that with your life. We don't want that to happen. I do want to thank Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser. He's with me again today. He's been traveling with me. In fact, he's been working this entire storm with me, and he's making sure that we're taking good care of our state parks, and where we have capacity, especially here in North Louisiana, he's making that available to house power crews. So these linemen who are coming into Louisiana and need a place to stay so that they can work and restore power will have a place to stay, and that's ultimately going to lead to us having our power back on sooner than later. And then lastly, I want to say a word about our faith-based community. They have just been tremendous, already stepping up across Louisiana where it's needed the most. You know, they're already in the community. There's no bureaucracy attached to churches and so forth, and so they can act very, very quickly. They're already doing that, and so I just want to tell them how much we appreciate that. And now is the time, as always, I guess, but especially now, to be a good neighbor. And being a good neighbor means doing all the things you would normally do during a storm, just doing it from 6 feet away, and with a mask on, because we still are the state in the country with the most cases per capita. We still have tremendous challenges from COVID. Although we are doing much better today than we were several weeks ago because of the additional restrictive measures that we put in place, the mitigation measures and so forth. So with that, we'll take a couple of questions, and you can address questions to me or to any of the individuals who are behind me. Yes, ma'am.
So I know you were saying that this is the strongest storm to hit Louisiana at this point in modern history. Is the damage anywhere nearly as severe as Katrina was 15 years ago? Yeah, well, you got to understand the storm was more powerful than Katrina. It came on shore at 1 o'clock yesterday morning at 150 miles per hour. That is 7 miles per hour less than a Category 5. So this is a very strong Category 4. And for people out there who like to study these things, in 36 hours, Laura went from a tropical storm to a very, very strong Category 4. This rapid intensification occurred because of how warm the water was in the Gulf of Mexico, and how ideal the conditions were to the formation and strengthening of that storm. Now, that's the strongest storm ever recorded. There's some estimation of a storm back in 1856 that may have matched it. I don't know how they would know that, but you know, there might be some people around who could talk about that. I don't know. But with respect to Katrina, what I wanted to point out was it really wasn't Katrina that did the damage in New Orleans. It was the failure of the levees. New Orleans sits in a bowl, and when the levee failed, the bowl filled up with water. That's what caused all of the devastation and ultimately the death. This was actually a stronger storm, and it came on as predicted, where predicted, and when predicted. And actually, we found out that the storm surge was about 15 feet. They said 15 to 20 feet. It came in at 15 feet. But the good news is the eye of the storm never crossed west of the Calcasieu Ship Channel, and so the most forceful winds that would have blown that water out of the Gulf up the Ship Channel never happened because the storm stayed on the eastern side there. So the good news is we didn't have inundation 30 miles inland as they had predicted from the storm surge. But that didn't mean we didn't have tremendous devastation down there. And obviously that was the most impacted area that was within the cone.
This is the least impacted area that was in the cone, and as you travel south back along the track of the storm, you're just going to progressively see more and more damage and devastation. In fact, when we leave here, we're going to go down to the Alexandria area and go look at Rapides Parish, Natchitoches Parish, and Vernon Parish, where I suspect that what we'll see will be something in between what we saw yesterday in Calcasieu and Cameron and what we saw up here today. Yes, yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
And one for one of the folks behind you. How will the storm and now the recovery efforts impact your decision in 2 weeks from now? Do you know yet?
Yeah.
You know, as to,
you know, I can't predict the decisions we make with respect to COVID and whether we stay in the same phase, impose additional mitigation measures. We always do that based on the data. The data is driven by the testing. And because we're not doing robust testing right now, I can't really tell you what that's going to look like. I'm a little bit concerned because we have 24 more people in the hospital, 24, in case that wasn't clear, more people in the hospital with COVID today than we had yesterday. But you know, it's not always an even slope, and so that doesn't necessarily mean that we won't have fewer tomorrow. But I did get that report earlier today. The good news is we're still reporting more than 10,000 tests today, 600 cases, 30 deaths. That generally speaking keeps us on the trajectory we were on that showed a lot of improvement. The problem, the only bad number we got today were the hospitalizations. So I won't know until we get closer to that time frame. I would like you to understand that the hottest region of our state in terms of positivity is Southwest Louisiana. And we have tens of thousands of people from Southwest Louisiana who are scattered all over the state taking shelter. About 3,500 of those in hotel rooms, but many, many more with relatives and friends and so forth. And so we don't know exactly what this is going to look like. The other thing, and this is a college town, so I think you all can appreciate this. In fact, you got two wonderful universities here, Grambling State University and Louisiana Tech. We brought our campuses back to life a couple of weeks ago. Our students are showing back up. Our K through 12 schools are in place. 1/4 of the state's population are either students, staff, or faculty, K through 12 or higher ed. So for the first time since March, we've had these people on the move too. And so if there was ever a time when you don't want your testing to go down, it's right now. And so until it comes back on and we start seeing what the positivity's like, what the cases are like, what the hospitalizations are like, it's just not possible for me to tell you what we're going to do in 2 weeks. But between now and then and thereafter, I'm asking people to do what we know works. Wear your mask, stay 6 feet apart from people not in your household, wash your hands frequently, stay home when you are sick. If we will do those things, we're going to be much, much better off. And you've got a question for somebody else.
yes, sir, for Mayor Walker, Ruffin. Could you give us an update, Mayor, as to where Ruffin is now, both utility-wise and any other issues the city may have?
Sure. We're, in fact, Andrew just walked up, and I think we're around 40% back, so that means we've got 60% of our households without and businesses without power. We are saying that we hope to have everything up and running by Tuesday. We hope sooner, but that's the governor's has taught me to what's the words you say?
Under promise and over deliver.
There we go. Exactly. So I'm following in my mentor's shoes here. As far as which is a huge problem across our state, we are in good shape. We still ask our people to conserve water, but we are, from a well standpoint and our wells being up and running, we're in good shape. Our wastewater treatment plant is in great shape also. It's not on generator anymore. We've got the power back up that. The main thing we're looking at now is getting the debris picked up, also getting the rest of the power lines where debris removal can take place. So as a whole, the city is faring much, much better than many cities that were hit, not only in the south part of the state, but also in the north. The grocery stores are open. A lot of the businesses are coming back. Our fiber, we still have some issues with that, but we'll be working that out also, hopefully before Tuesday. Did I cover everything for you? Good deal.
And finally, we did see some pretty long lines at some service stations. Folks trying to get fuel. We know that fuel is an issue, especially perhaps diesel to run many of the generators and so forth. We're aware of that, and we're working to make sure. And by the way, our refineries are coming back online here. They never shut down outside the state of Louisiana, so I expect that any interruption there is going to be very short-lived. The last thing we know, and this was briefed by Mike Strain this morning, the Commissioner of Ag and Forestry, is that we know that in this region we have a lot of poultry producers, and they have to be able to keep those fans on in August in order to keep those chickens live. And this is no minor thing, because there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of chickens. So we're trying to make sure that they have access to the fuel they need to run their generators until the electricity comes back on. Otherwise, we know that they're going to lose their poultry, and so I did want to make sure that everybody knows that the commissioner is on top of that. He's working with Tom Harris, the Secretary of DNR, to access as much fuel as we need and get it to where it can be obtained by the producers. We also have to keep the generators running at the processing plants to make sure that the cold storage stays on too. But all of these ills that we have here can be solved and will be solved once the electricity comes back on. And that's going to happen in the next couple of days. I'm very, very confident. It'll be much longer than that in Southwest Louisiana. Look, I do want to thank y'all for continuing to cover this, and I want to thank all these people behind me who are working so hard to make sure that their constituents have what they need in order to do as best as they can do until their lives are made normal again. And look, the normal doesn't look like the real normal, right? I'm just talking about getting right past this storm. But they're working extremely hard, and they're in constant communication with me and my office and GOSEP to try to make sure that we're aware of what the needs are in this region. And I do want to thank them for that. And I want to thank you all for continuing to cover this. And like I always do, or always try to do, I'm going to ask us that we pray for one another, pray for our state. We've got 10 families who've lost somebody, and that's from the storm. Again, 30 people who died in today's report on COVID. So let's lift one another up in prayer. Let's work together. Let's be good neighbors. We'll get through this, and we'll build back stronger than ever before. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you, Governor.
It was much cooler out here before we took the
Early this morning, yeah.
It was still cloudy. It was nice.
Appreciate you.
Together in at the end of the bridge.
Yeah.